Welcome to the SCORE Business Showcase. Once again, I'm your host, Steve Geyer, and my lovely co-host is Marianne Cochet. So we're looking forward to this special event with Eanna Rushe. He's been in business for a while, and he's in the sports field, especially sports medicine. And before we get into that, let's do a little quick bio on SCORE.
Yeah, hi, Steve. It's great to do another show today. And SCORE is a free business resource. Don't go it alone. SCORE provides mentoring, online training, and webinars. There's also templates, guides, and many frequently asked questions. Regardless of your stage of business, there's something for every small business owner or entrepreneur at SCORE.
Thank you, Marianne. And as far as your business is concerned, and the name of it is Biosports Technology. What is it that you actually do?
So our main focus is golf fitness, golf instruction, golf coaching, golf biomechanics, golf equipment fitting. We also have physical therapy here, and we also do like your regular exercise training and personal training for people who just want to get in regular shape and maybe lose a few pounds. So we kind of have a bunch of different services under one roof. It initially started out as just like the golf fitness component many moons ago. And over the years, it's kind of evolved as we've taken a little bit more space over time and added some more services under one roof.
Well, that's fantastic because, I just got my first exercise bench. So I'm really interested in what you have to say.
All right, good. Yeah, we'll have to go through some exercises later. So,
Exactly. Eanna, I'm curious, how did you get interested in golf fitness and golf biomechanics?
yeah, good question, actually. It kind of started by accident, frankly, years ago when I was down in a clinic down in White Plains. Before that, I was more involved in like the commercial fitness and the corporate fitness. I spent some time in London in commercial fitness and corporate fitness, came over here on an internship. And then shortly after coming here, ended up in a clinic down in White Plains. And it was back in like the Tiger Woods era, just as he was coming on the scene and the face of golf was starting to change. And some of the local golf pros were starting to get more interested in golf fitness to, one, to help themselves, and two, to feel like they could help out their clients and their members. Because they were trying to get their golfers into certain positions that their body just wouldn't allow them to go. And they started to come over to the clinic. They wanted some advice on kind of exercise testing and screening and programs for both the golf pros themselves and for the members. And that's really how it started. So it was kind of experimental back then, I have to say. There was really very little in the golf fitness space at that time. It was kind of a new category, you might say, in fitness and in golf. I'd say before that, many golfers didn't really appreciate the value of fitness. But once Tiger Woods came along, and also Annika Sorenstam, both of those players, really elevated the golf game and brought like a sense of excitement and energy and athleticism to the game, which it probably lacked before that, and made the sport cool. And people started to kind of get more attracted to the game and wanted to get more in shape to play the game. They saw how far the golfers were trying to hit the golf ball at that time, especially with Tiger. And they realized, we have to look at this as more of a sport and not just a passive kind of benign activity, that this is really an athletic event. And that's kind of how it really started. And I started taking golf lessons. I really hadn't played much golf before that. A couple of summers in Ireland, just, fooling around, really. It was more the Gaelic football back then. But I started taking lessons from some of the local golf pros and realized that the game is really hard. These pros make it look so easy week in, week out on tour. But when you start to kind of take a deeper dive into the athleticism of the sport and the golf swing, I was quite shocked actually how difficult it was. And that's kind of gave me the bug to try and kind of dig a little deeper and find out, how do these golfers create the speed and power? And that's where the biomechanics started to creep in.
I used to lift about 20 years ago with a friend, and 200 pounds was, not bad. But now getting back into it, 20 pounds is
Right.
heavy. so as far as your philosophy is concerned,
Yes, exactly. If you don't use it, you lose it, right?
right? Now,
You don't use it, you lose it.
what is the philosophy behind your business? What is your philosophy behind?
I'd say, yeah. There's a couple of things really. Golf has been steeped in the past, and a lot of golf teachers have their own philosophy on how to swing the golf club. And of course, in fitness, there's many fads and philosophies about how to get in shape or what to do to keep in shape. So I try to go with more like a science-based approach. If there's some legitimate science behind a methodology or a concept, if there's some good research, that's really where I try to lean the most. So we rely a lot on like the Titleist Performance Institute. They've done a lot of research with golfers and golf fitness and golf biomechanics. They've tested a lot of the tour players, and they've really kind of elevated golf fitness over the last maybe decade or 15 years. So we get a lot of information from there. That's a good kind of platform to kind of hone your skills and stay current. And same thing with the golf instruction. They've done a lot with that in terms of like the biomechanics, really getting like a deep understanding of how golfers create speed and power, why they're so consistent. If you think of like biomechanics as like an MRI of your golf swing, looking at things that you can't really see with the naked eye. So let's say you injure your shoulder doing your bench pressing, right? You go to the doctor, he palpates or the muscle and the joint and gets an idea of what's going wrong. But if he wants a deeper look inside that area, he'll do an MRI. So the biomechanics is kind of the same thing. It takes a deeper dive into the golf swing, and you can see things that you can't see with the naked eye, like how fast each body part is moving, like how fast the hips are moving, how fast the trunk is moving. So things that you couldn't see, and you can kind of start to quantify the motion and get some graphs and numbers that, as they say, don't guess when you can measure. So that's kind of the idea, and that's kind of the approach we try to take.
Eanna, how would you say your personal passions align with your business?
Yeah, I'm fanatical about the fitness and the nutrition and the golf. I've always been involved in kind of athletic development and personal training and keeping in shape, and particularly interested in nutrition and its impact on health and longevity. So I suppose the business kind of parallels kind of my own kind of day-to-day activities in terms of working out on a regular basis, pretty conscientious about the nutrition. You don't have to be fanatical. If you follow like an 80-20 rule, I think you're going to do pretty much fine throughout your life. So you can have the cheat meals, you can have the occasional glass of red wine or whatever. So it's okay to go off the tracks a little bit from time to time. But if you do, 80% of the things, the good things on a regular basis, you're going to be just fine. So, consistency is probably a big thing. I have a t-shirt I'm going to start giving out to clients soon. On the back of it says, be fanatical about being consistent. And I trademarked it. So that's kind of what one of my philosophies is: do the simple things, do them regularly, and the rest will take care of itself. And that idea of being consistent not just applies to golf, but nutrition and fitness and business. Be consistent with your colleagues, be consistent with your kids and your parenting, and be consistent with your homework. So it has a lot of kind of transfer to different areas.
Now I know, why should a golfer go to you compared to these other general sports performance? Will they achieve better with you?
Good question, actually. So we really kind of pride ourselves on our kind of evaluation process. It's pretty in-depth, pretty thorough. So whenever a golfer comes in, first we'll go through a whole series of tests, a battery of tests on fitness and range of motion, strength, stability, balance, coordination. We'll give the golfer like a golf fitness handicap, similar to a golf handicap. And it's based on what like tour players would do. So you kind of get a good reference from where you fit in versus like the tour player or the higher handicapper. We also have a golf simulator where we do video analysis. So the golfer can actually hit live golf balls. We look at club head speed, ball speed. We can look at the golfer from a few different angles and see what their motion is like. And we can kind of tie their motion into their screen. And the golfer might say, listen, I have a hard time doing this on my golf swing. Or we can trace that back to their golf evaluation. Say, well, okay, here in this evaluation, we saw that you had a little tightness in your right hip, and that's why it's preventing you from doing something that you're trying to do in your golf swing. I think the general, fitness facility doesn't get to that level. They certainly don't have the ability to hit live golf balls and do video. So I think we're just a little bit more thorough. We do kind of do a lot of schooling to keep up to date with what's going on in the field. So we're pretty current. We have a good group of staff here. Golf pros are excellent. They stay very current. They're very passionate about what they do. And I think that's probably what gives us maybe just a little bit of an edge over the general facility. Each sport has its own kind of unique challenges and athletic requirements and nuances. And golf is no different. So the more time you can spend in the field and analyzing and studying, I think the better you're going to become over time.
It sounds great that you really go in and look at their unique situation and help them. Eanna, I think that many people believe that if you're going to improve your golf game, that all you need to do is take some lessons and practice. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a good question, actually. And, just going back to what we spoke about earlier about Tiger Woods and Annika Sorenstam. If you were to ask most people back then before they came on the scene, that's exactly what you would have been told is, you don't need to work on your body. Just go and get some golf lessons, hit a few golf balls, and you'll be fine. But that really changed the game and changed the approach that golfers started to take. It became pretty apparent that golf was much more of an athletic event than what was perceived in the past. It became more exciting to watch. Golfers were getting longer, hitting it further. The golfers were getting bigger as they came out on tour. And so the game has changed dramatically over the last several years. And we can thank Tiger and Annika Sorenstam for that. And, for the golfers on tour, they realized if they wanted to keep up and stay current, that they had to change their approach. And most of them have. Now, they all have their own personal trainers, massage therapists, nutritionists. There's a fitness trailer that goes to all the PGA Tour stops. So now the players can stay in shape. They have a place to warm up before they go to the driving range. In the past, the golfer would stumble out to the driving range, hit a few balls, and that would be his warm-up. Today, that's not the case. The tour player spends maybe up to 40 minutes in the fitness trailer, prepping his body before he even goes to the driving range. So he's already done his warm-up before he even gets to the driving range. The driving range, hitting golf balls in the driving range, is really just a way to kind of fine-tune their movement pattern, warm up the nervous system. So the approach has changed dramatically over the years. So I would say the day of just hitting a few golf balls, that's long gone. And you see it, the game has attracted now real athletes to the game. In the past, the athlete might have gone to baseball or tennis, but now they're coming more towards golf because it's a hot sport. It's exciting. There's money in it. So it's attracting real athletes. And you can see that with the athleticism of the players these days. They're bigger, taller, faster on all the tours. So the game has really, really changed dramatically.
Now, typically, I'm sure your clients have goals. Now, do you customize your training to those specific goals that they might have?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the goals would be different depending on maybe the age of the golfer, whether it's male, female. If I get in like maybe a 15-year-old golfer and he's playing on the high school golf team, he's usually thinking about maybe trying to play golf in college. So their goals might be a little different from, say, the 60-year-old, executive who comes in, who's been sitting at his desk for the last, 30 years and hasn't done much from a fitness point of view. there the goals could be very different. The 60-year-old is looking at maybe trying to regain some mobility, flexibility, some strength, whereas the 15-year-old has a lot of those components already, is just trying to fine-tune and enhance that. So the goals definitely are different depending on the golfer, what stage they're at in their kind of golf development. But we definitely try to customize it as much as possible. We can set them up with programs they can do at home. There's online videos we can send to the golfers if they can do themselves, if they have a hard time getting in here on a regular basis. I have some clients that, will come up from maybe New York City once a week or once every couple of weeks. So we're in Greenwich, so that's, a big commitment. So we can kind of customize the program any way that we need to.
Eanna, how does training specifically for golf improve your golf game and prevent injury?
The injury point is interesting. There's you'll see a difference in the type of injuries that your tour player will get and your amateur will get. Typically with the tour player, it's the wrist and the forearm that's kind of the most common side of injuries. And most often it's from the repetitive use. It's the repetitive nature of the game. Their mechanics are usually supreme, whereas the amateur, the most common side of injury tends to be the low back. Oftentimes they don't warm up properly. They're lacking in some range of motion, particularly in their hips. So if they don't have enough hip mobility, the low back typically gets overworked. And the low back is now really designed for a lot of rotation. So you'll see a difference in how the injuries present themselves. One is often poor mechanics with the amateur. The tour player, it's more to do with the repetitive nature of the event and just, a long season of playing and practicing. And going back to the athleticism of the sport, golf is a sport. And like any sport, you want to try and get yourself in the best shape that you possibly can. You look at, and it's comparable to like a baseball batting in terms of like the body segment speeds. The speed of the hips and the speed of the torso in golf is very similar to a baseball batting. So you wouldn't conceive of going to, bat without getting yourself in shape. Same with pitching. So golf has all the same athletic components: speed, balance, coordination, strength, power. The load on the spine are several times your body weight. So all those things kind of go hand in hand to make, realize that golf is a sport and a very demanding athletic event. So if you want to compete at the highest level, you really have no choice these days but to really kind of pay attention to your body and your golf fitness.
Hey, last year I was cutting the hedges and I hurt my shoulder. What are some of the common golf injuries that these golfers have, and how can they be avoided?
I would say, certainly left wrist, forearm is one, shoulder, as you mentioned, the left knee for a right-handed golfer. That's kind of a stress point in golf. There's so much of the body weight gets onto that left leg or front side leg in golf. Could be a couple of times your body weight. The stress is on the spine from the constant bending and rotation. It could be several times body weight. With the amateur, oftentimes it's, sometimes like poor preparation. They don't warm up enough. So the low back is kind of a very common side of injury for golfers. They're lacking some mobility, particularly in the hips. So the spine ends up taking a lot of abuse that it shouldn't really have to take because of the lack of mobility in the hips. So those would become some common sites of injuries. Not that different from other sports in reality. Again, it goes back to the demands of the sport and the body. They're pretty significant demands. The tour player makes it look easy. It looks like a real kind of benign, passive activity. But when you try to swing a golf club at 100 miles per hour on a repetitive basis, you realize pretty quickly that this is a pretty demanding athletic type of activity.
We talked about goals a little bit earlier for your clients, but what were your goals in becoming a business owner?
I suppose like every small business owner is to, kind of be your own boss and do things the way you'd like to have them done. And as I mentioned earlier, I kind of started off as just like a very small, like little golf fitness establishment. I was in a facility down in Westchester and wanted to kind of branch out on my own. And I had an opportunity to set up in a community center actually in Stanford. So it's a small, maybe 200 square feet outside the men's and women's locker room on the second floor in a community center. And from there, we moved down into a racquetball court. I converted a racquetball court into a little golf training facility, put in a net. And then over time, transitioned down to Coscob and Greenwich, where we have a little bit more space. And the goal was to try and have like multiple services under one roof, not just the golf fitness, but have the golf biomechanics, have the golf pros on hand to do the golf coaching and training, golf equipment, have the physical therapy. So everybody kind of overlaps to some extent, and all the services are kind of complementary. So that was kind of the biggest goal, I guess. The vision was to have multiple services under one roof.
Now, what is your biggest inspiration on what you do, and what do you enjoy most about your work?
My biggest inspiration, I would say some of my clients actually over the years. I've got some older clients now at this stage, some in their late 80s and 90s. So they are hugely inspirational and kind of how they've lived their lives. And they've had their challenges along the way, both, business, health, but they still find a way to get out of bed in the morning and go tee it up. It's pretty impressive. So that's a huge motivator when I see people like that do that. And, when golfers add on an extra 10 or 15 yards to their golf drive, when they have less low back pain, when they play, if they lose 10 or 15 pounds, they get a little stronger. So all those things, I think, are probably the biggest motivators and definitely the most rewarding part of the job for sure.
What would you say for our viewers were some business challenges that you faced and then you were able to overcome them?
I guess when you start off a business first, the first thing is, can you pay the rent? So that's kind of the initial challenge, getting, your initial clients in the door. And then once you kind of over time get a handle on that, I guess the challenges change as the business changes. The most recent one would obviously be COVID. That was a big challenge, particularly when you're like a 100% like a customer service oriented business. So that was definitely a big challenge. So we had to make some changes, as you can imagine, and streamline the business to overcome that. We're lucky that we can do one-on-one. Whereas if you think about the big box gyms, it would have been hugely challenging for them. So we were able to do one-on-one. We could do the social distancing with the mask. It was easy to do the cleaning. So we were able to kind of stay in business to some extent. We had to, work with the landlord on, negotiating rent, which was fantastic. That was kind of the most important thing right there, is talk to your landlord and work something out. There's no point leaving and trying to find space somewhere else. You may as well try and figure it out, and it helps both of you. So that was probably the most recent biggest challenge for sure. I did invent a golf training product, or have invented a golf training product. And the whole timeline on that, from, sketching it out on literally on a napkin to trying to get it to market, has been incredibly turbulent. That's probably been my biggest challenge to date from a business standpoint. You think these things are going to be linear, but it's far from it. The ups and downs and the setbacks from that initial kind of concept to trying to get the product to market, which hopefully will happen this spring, actually. That's been hugely challenging. I could talk to you a little bit more about that if you like.
Well, wanted to know, what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs out there that are actually thinking about starting a business?
You'll put in more hours and have more stress than you thought you would initially. That's the first thing. You think being your own boss, you can make your own schedule and kind of come and go whenever you want. but that's not going to be the case. Not with a small business of this kind. So the hours are going to be longer, a little bit more stress. And I would say, risk tolerance. How much risk are you willing to tolerate? That was more applicable to the golf product. You get investors on board, you put in some money yourself, but it's going to come a point in time where you're raising money from family and friends, but that dries up eventually, but you have to get to the next stage. So what are you willing to do to kind of push forward? Are you willing to mortgage your house? Are you willing to take out credit card debt to get to the next stage? So that's a big consideration if you're thinking about moving in that line in terms of like product development, starting a little business, is the risk tolerance and how much you're willing to leverage yourself. I hadn't really thought too much about that, frankly, before I started that. But that's something that's going to come to a point in time where you really have to step back and take a look and say, okay, what am I willing to do to push this forward a little bit more? Because it's going to go through several different stages, especially with the product cycle. You think one prototype is going to be enough. It never is. You're going to do maybe 5 prototypes, and all that going to choose up resources and funds. So really, my first investor told me right out of the gates, he says, guys, in your situation, trying to get products off the ground and starting businesses, you'll always be looking to raise money. It's always the challenge, always the battle. And he was right, absolutely 100%.
And I'm sorry, Eanna, do you believe that SCORE or a mentor would have helped you through some of those challenges, because you really faced a lot?
Oh, I'm quite certain they could have, yes. Just kind of some guidelines on, particularly if it was someone had a product development background, I'm sure they could have been hugely helpful along the way. Not just that, but just like, look, the back end of this little business. I'm pretty sloppy in that area. I hate the bookkeeping and keeping track of how many sessions clients have, and you can talk to Ed about that. But just someone that you could check with maybe every month and be accountable to somebody. I think that would be invaluable for sure.
Now, Eanna, how can our viewers actually get in touch with you?
Sure. We have a website, biosporttechnologies.com. Email is rush@biosporttechnologies.com. If you go on the website, I've got a free golf fitness manual that you can download. There's access to videos there that you can access for free for golf fitness. The phone number is 203-661-8330. Feel free to reach out anytime if any questions. I post videos on a fairly regular basis to clientele. So that's all freely available.
That's fabulous.
Learning about your journey.
Absolutely. I've been.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Marianne.
I've been a couple of times to the programs they had through the Travelers
Sure.
Open.
Mm-hmm.
They've been fun. But I enjoyed Corporate Row, where you were able to get air conditioning and also the food.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah.
But I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. We're wrapping up now, and we'd like to hear further of your journey, maybe at another time.
Absolutely, yeah. When my product goes to market, I'll come back and tell you how it all went.
Okay, so we'd like to thank our viewers out there, and once again, to your business success, and thanks for listening to SCORE TV.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Marianne.
Thank you.